other website I want to draw your attention to, because I know we talked about the Bill of Rights and then the Founding Fathers, and again that precondition of Constitution only coming from the Bill of Rights, and a very pensive, at the very least, attitude of the states in creating a new central government. And then we talked about, well, what happened? How did the federal government grow into this behemoth that it has grown into? Some of it has been complacency, some of it out of a perceived need, the 14th Amendment, and then the court's interpretation of the 14th Amendment. And the one thing you have to remember about amending the Constitution is it takes 3/4 of the states. Now that is both a high threshold for changing the Constitution, all right, initially, but it's also a high threshold for overturning a court's decision as well. So if a court or if the legislature acts and a court says, well, this is what it's going to be, and 60% of the states, not 3/4, but 60% of the states disagree, you still don't have the numbers necessary to amend the Constitution or to reestablish some position in the Constitution. So that power of the minority through the courts and through the states, when you take not a strict constructionist view of the Constitution, but a more malleable view of the Constitution, really gives the court a tremendous amount of power. And from that, you do get policies that are established as constitutional, probably without the intent of the Founding Fathers being there initially. But the ends justifies the means. And a lot of times the courts will look at the 14th Amendment, equal protection of the laws, and that concept of general welfare, to establish this as a power of the federal government, and therefore okay for the federal government to impose upon the citizens of the states, and then the citizens via the states. And one of the 14th Amendment, what's interesting about the 14th Amendment, and maybe somebody can take it upon themselves to figure this out, this is in find law, it takes 3/4 of the states to amend the Constitution. Did somebody ask me the question about somebody had asked me the question about where do we stop doing the electoral college where we start electing the president and the vice president? And I think it's the 12th Amendment. I think I said it was the 12th Amendment, and it is the 12th Amendment. The 14th Amendment, here we go, the Function 6. You want to take it upon yourself. This is how the ratification came about of the different states regarding the 14th Amendment. And you got to remember again that the 14th Amendment comes after the Civil War. You see that some states' legislature ratified the following on the following dates: Connecticut, June 30th, 1866, Northern State; New Hampshire, July 7th, 1866; Tennessee, which was actually a split state. Andrew Johnson, who was a Democrat, stayed loyal to the Union and was actually the vice president of Lincoln when Lincoln was assassinated. But Tennessee, July 66, New Jersey, September 11th. But then the New Jersey legislature on February 20th, right, 2 years later, withdrew its consent to the ratification. So it said, okay, and then said, no, we don't want that. And then go on, Oregon on September 19th, 1866, and then Oregon withdrew its consent on October 15th in 1968. So 2 years later, it withdrew. Vermont on October 30th, 66, New York, January, Ohio, but then Ohio withdrew its consent. And then Illinois and West Virginia and Michigan, and then Kansas, and then Minnesota, and then Maine, you see, all of 67, right? And then in Missouri, and then it is certified Missouri Secretary of State, and then Rhode Island. But then it comes back. It actually passed. It's not signed by the legislature until February 13th. And then you start getting individual states coming back and saying, okay, well, maybe we're going to agree to this. So there's a real question as to this process, certainly, as to what was ratified and when it was ratified, and how you count up the numbers for the 3/4. Now, regardless, it's an amendment to the Constitution. It's approached as such. It's established as such. It's been the law of the land for the last so many years. But good point to remember is that it was not uniformly accepted. It was not embraced right offhand. And everybody stood up and said, yes, this is a great idea. Let's do this. It took some cajoling and some convincing to get the states to amend it. And again, like the ratification of the Constitution by the delegations, you can bet that there was a very narrow interpretation of what this 14th Amendment was going to do. Well, that narrow interpretation has been blown into a very broad interpretation today. I mean, really, the 14th Amendment was tailored towards creating citizenship for individuals who were now no longer slaves, but not citizens. This is Dred Scott decision, and then the 13th Amendment, which is the abolition of slavery, and then the 14th Amendment, which says, okay, well, you're still not citizens, but you're not slaves. How these individuals will be treated. So citizenship is established in this amendment, the 14th Amendment, what we call jus soli, the right of soil. And then, okay, you're citizens, but now we don't want the states to discriminate. So there has to be an equal protection of the laws of those citizens. So that if you're a citizen of the state, new as you may be, you will be afforded all the same protections as any other citizen of the state. It was really geared towards black men, and later on ultimately women, but black men in that state to be treated as equal or as equally as possible. Later on, we'll use that 14th Amendment to do a number of things in terms of equal protection of the laws. Title VII grows out of that. Title IX grows out of that, I should say. Are you familiar with Title IX? Title IX?